everyone and welcome to BIAZA Brings You. My name is Chloe and I'm recording here at Midland Safari Park. My talk today is going to be on CPD for zoo educators. So I've been very lucky in that I've had a number of years now to reflect on my time in industry and a lot of the really fantastic opportunities I've been given. So my talk today is aimed primarily at zoo educators who are what I would refer to as emerging. So you've had a couple of years in your collection getting to grips with things, but you may not yet be a team leader or a manager. So we're focusing very much on how we will develop within our job roles and improve our skill sets as zoo educators. So in my talk today, I'm going to touch on three main points. The first is, why is continuing professional development important for us as zoo educators, and the range of options that are available for CPD. What I'm going to cover today is by no means an exhaustive list. There are a range of different options available, and it will be about you going away and thinking about what's most relevant and feasible within your current job role and your current collection. And then finally, I'm going to give you a couple of hints and tips to help you get started thinking about your CPD. Defining our key term for our talk then, what is CPD? It is continuing professional development. So these can be any learning activities which allow you to develop your professional skills. People often think that CPD has to end in some kind of certificate or accreditation. This isn't necessarily true. It can be any activity as long as you can evidence it where you have developed some kind of professional skill, you've increased your confidence in a particular area or your knowledge base. So really there are a wide range of options to you. I will talk about some accredited options that do end up in a certificate, but there are a range of other options as well. So please do bear that in mind when you're listening in. When we're thinking about CPD, there are a range of different options. The first really is thinking about the Red High Queen hypothesis, in that we all have to run as fast as we can in order to remain in the same place. Zoos are an incredible industry to work in because it's so dynamic. There are always updates and improvements, and we've never mastered what it is to be a modern zoo. Therefore, as zoo educators, we should make sure that we ourselves are developing our practice and our skills to ensure that we are really at the cutting edge of industry and that the education we're providing is as effective and engaging as possible. On a personal level, continuing professional development can help you future-proof. So within industry, there will be a range of changes on the horizon. We've got potential updates to the Secretary of State. We've got our BIAZA education guidelines, which may be coming in as policy in the near future. And we've also got changes beyond the zoo industry, such as T-levels coming in. So we also need to be aware of changes that are happening beyond zoos so that we can think about how we build our links with those external organisations when we're providing zoo education. Finally, having CPD is really important for you to build resilience within your job role. Hopefully, zoo education is a job that you do because you're incredibly passionate and knowledgeable. And all of that drive and motivation doesn't just go away when you step into your first role within zoo education. So it's really important that you keep growing, keep developing, so that you're ready for the future, whether you're remaining within your collection, thinking of moving into a different job role. And it can really help you fall back in love with your job role. If you've been in a particular position for a while, you want to continue to stretch yourself, and having your own particular passion project or a goal that you're working towards, it can be really inspiring and really help you to forge your way forward, even if you are remaining within the same place. So to start off with then, let's think about some accredited options. So this is where you end up with a certificate effectively, and it's a nationally recognised qualification. The first three I'm going to talk about relate very much to developing your skills in teaching. The wonderful thing about zoo education is people have come in through many different routes. I personally work with a range of ex-teachers, but not everybody who enters zoo education has taken that route. So the level 3, therefore, the award in education and training, is really fantastic in providing a baseline understanding of how we teach. How do we plan a lesson? What are the key factors that we need to consider? And it will allow you to build effectively a micro-teach, and you look at how you can best design a lesson to meet the range of learners that you've got in front of you. Again, for me personally, my level 3 was incredibly inspiring and a really valuable opportunity, and I found it so incredibly useful moving forward as a zoo educator. The level 3 assessors course, very important, but a slightly different focus. The assessors course will focus on how we design, manage, and run assessments. This can be really valuable if you are working alongside FE or HE learners, and if you are guest lecturing on a unit, how do you set up and run your assessments for that module, and how do you ensure a fair assessment process? The other thing to think about, as I mentioned earlier, we need to think about developments happening outside of zoos. Currently, T-levels are being put in place, and this is a halfway house between A-levels and your full-blown apprenticeship. T-levels will have a large work experience component, and it's not just a case of quickly signing off a portfolio. It may be that we as prospective employers and industry, we will need to input into learners' portfolios and assessing their skills. So if we're thinking about our future proofing, this might be one that's very valuable, particularly if, as zoo educators, sometimes we have to wear many hats. And if you also look after work experience, interns and apprentices, thinking about the level 3 and the impact that T-levels may have on your collection in future is going to be valuable. The level 5 diploma in education and training is a really huge undertaking, typically between 18 months and 2 years, but really the pace will be set between you and whichever organisation is awarding your qualification. For the level 5, depending on your exam board, it is expected that you have regular contact with a number of cohorts of learners. So really the level 5 is going to be more relevant for you if you regularly guest lecture within FE or HE. The level 5, it really builds on the level 3, but in a great more range of ways, including expanding your depth of the knowledge of topics introduced within the level 3. So it will look at things like schemes of learning, promoting inclusivity, and how you sort of manage and develop progress within your cohort over an extended period of time. In addition to qualifications that look at our teaching skills, you can always think about expanding your sort of animal, zoo, or biological based knowledge. There are an incredible range of postgraduate certificates and HE qualifications that you can look at as well to help inspire you. So whether this is thinking about going in for your master's or thinking about a postgraduate certificate in a particular topic, there can be a range of ways that you can engage with HE beyond your BSc, if you have one. Again, lots of people enter zoo industry from a range of different routes. What I would say in terms of the level 5 and any postgraduate study that you do, please think about course fees. These may not necessarily be covered by a student loan, and you may need to think about budgeting, either looking at fully or partially funding the bill yourself, or whether you're going to organise with your employer for these courses to be covered. It is important to remember that many zoos, we run on a budget. Lots of zoos are still recovering from the impact of COVID. So cost and expenditure may be a factor that you wish to consider if you're undertaking one of these larger, longer term goals for CPD. Other accredited courses can include things like first aid. This is a really fantastic transferable skill, and I know a lot of zoos, put it down as their desirable criteria. Being zoo educators, hopefully you are quite people orientated. You can now think about doing things like mental health first aid as well. And also you can think about animal first aid. So whether this is, you also are involved in husbandry and you wish to expand your skill set there, or whether you want to learn from a kind of purely theoretical point of view, that may also be an option that you can consider. As I mentioned previously, accredited qualifications are not the only way to go. There are a range of ways that you can upskill within your collection, particularly, as I just mentioned, if budget is a concern, paying for an external course may not be on the cards for you at the moment, but don't worry, there are still lots of ways that you can evidence development within your job role. A fantastic thing that I think works really, really well is networking with other departments. So either you go out and observe either your for example, your wildlife department, you can think about how you can expand your knowledge of species, individual animals, the husbandry practices that are happening within your collection. Maybe you would like to be involved in research beyond kind of social evaluation research. That can be a really important way you can connect. One of the things that we run at the Safari Park and we found really useful is internal observations. It can be quite intimidating as a zoo educator if you have a manager come in and observe you and taking notes, and it's quite formal. So instead, what you could do is observe one another. So you as the observer can develop your observation skills and understand how it feels to do an observation. But then if you are the teacher being observed, it's also a lower pressure environment because it's much more sort of formative and informal, but you can still gain some really valuable feedback as to how you come across, how you present, and how you manage a classroom or a learning space filled with students. You can think about evaluating and reimagining what your collection already does. I know particularly within zoo education at the moment, there may be pressures on people's job roles. You've already got a lot on your plate. So either starting a new external course or starting a new project within your collection may feel a little bit overwhelming. So a really good halfway house for developing your skills might be to reimagine, evaluate and refresh something that your collection already does. So it could be a particular kind of school offering or some kind of informal engagement activity where you can evaluate it and then put forward suggestions for the following year, 6 months, however long it needs to be. The final option is you can think about developing a new offering, product or service for your zoo. And this can be really a wonderful opportunity because it allows you to bring together something that you're really passionate about. Maybe there's a demographic that you really want to engage with. Maybe you've been inspired and you've got some really good ways that you can bring in education in a different format to your zoo. So that could be another way that even within your own zoo, without external contacts, you can think about developing and evidencing your professional skills. Looking at other collections can be incredibly valuable. So another way that we can professionally develop is liaison with other collections. Within BIAZA, we are very fortunate to have our regional and our annual conservation education conferences. It would be wonderful if every zoo educator in the UK could attend, but we do have to be realistic when you're thinking about, as a manager that you're planning these things, we can't always feasibly get every member of the team to attend, but every member of the team may still want to develop their skills in some way. Therefore, even if you're not fortunate enough to be able to attend a conference, you could think about contacting an individual collection and saying, oh, I've been really inspired by X, Y, and Z, or, oh, I'd really like to develop my skills in ABC. Can I come and see how you do things over here? I've done this personally, and it's absolutely fantastic. In particular, if you're an emerging zoo educator who has only been working in one collection so far, it can be really eye-opening to go and see what other collections do, what their limitations are, what their strengths are, and it can really help you build your ideas from there. You can also network online. So, for example, you've got a range of social media platforms, and there are groups out there for zoo educators. As ever, a word of caution, anything you post can be seen by a wide range of people, and just to, look before you leap when you're thinking about contributing. But in terms of connecting to other collections, other zoo educators and sharing ideas, they can be really creative and influential spaces. So it is well worth considering. So now we've thought about some ways in which you can develop, you can really think about where you've got to start. And this is very much an internal process. Where do you want to go in your career within the next 5 years? Are there any weaknesses that you wish to develop? As a zoo educator, it can be very tempting sometimes to think, actually, I'm really good at this, so I want to run with this and I want to build these skills and I want to almost become a specialist in this regard. But what you can also think about is tackling your weaknesses and saying, okay, it's a bit scary. I really struggle with this particular discipline. Therefore, although it's tricky, I'm going to hone in on this. Talking to your manager and communication with supervisors is really important. Hopefully you have an annual review meeting as part of your job role. This shouldn't just be an HR tick boxing exercise. This meeting can be really informative to help you think about where you want to go and set you up with some goals for the next year, 3 years, 5 years, however long it takes. And having your manager there as that external sounding board to say, I'd like to get to here, can you help me? What can we do? That can be really, really informative. I would also like to include there that looking at your department strategy can be very important. So within BIAZA collections, it is strongly encouraged that you have an education strategy. So looking at the education strategy, even if as an emerging educator, you haven't helped write it and you maybe don't have that much influence within the education strategy, being able to see it can help you think about, are there any demographics? Are there any passion projects? Are there any goals within that strategy that you could take ownership of? Because a large part of professional development is taking ownership of something and saying, you know, this is what I have contributed to the team. This is how I have developed myself. So thinking about that department strategy, is there anything that you can really pick up and run with, can be really beneficial for helping you to solidify your ideas. If you've got your focus and you know what you want to aim for, absolutely fantastic. But as I said within my introduction, there are some things, some hints and tips that I would say have these in place before you rush off into your professional development. The first one is set clear, measurable objectives. Know what you want to achieve and how you are going to measure your achievement and your progress. That's really important, particularly if you are writing a review of a new project or re-evaluating existing work done at the zoo. Think about your time frame and the amount of personal investment. I don't think I know anybody in zoo education at the moment who's sat here thinking, oh, do you know what, I really don't have enough to do. I'd really like some more work, please. So think about how you're going to manage and develop your professional skills alongside your existing workload. And this is why using your annual review or a meeting with your manager can be very important, because they can help you work out what's going to be realistic alongside what's coming up over the next year. Thinking about budget as well, you know, please don't assume that there won't be financial support from your collection, because there may well be. So think about how you're going to approach the subject of budget as part of your meeting and your plan. And finally, I would say, don't forget to collect any baseline data. So if you're either creating a new project or you're re-evaluating something that your zoo does, don't forget to monitor and record what is currently happening, because then if you're linking back to your measurable objectives, you can monitor how you have made a difference. So for those of you who have access to education from a university pathway, almost think of it a bit like planning your dissertation. You've got to get your goals and your objectives in place so that you can monitor them, evaluate them, and then discuss and conclude them. Approach your professional development in that same mindset, and that will be really, really beneficial. One of the other things you can think about as well is your outside reading. So as I mentioned earlier, have a look at your education strategy before you begin. Have a look at the BIAZA educational guidelines. Again, they may be updating in a reasonably short frame of time to become policy. So think about, how are you meeting or hitting your BIAZA guidelines as part of your professional development. Think about there will be wider opportunities to look at. So for example, the Zoo Licensing Act is currently being reviewed, the Secretary of State, as well as the WAZA vision and strategic priorities. They will all be updated. If you're thinking about evaluating engagement for school groups, looking at the national curriculum and any updates there. To that end, particularly for primary school children, the Department of Education has released a policy paper on sustainability and climate change, and even things like offering new GCSE pathways. So things like natural sciences and natural history. Think about how these wider changes in education might interact with how we are teaching and delivering environmental and biodiversity education within a zoo setting. So having a look at your reading list before you start planning as well can continue to inform your ideas. So thank you very much. Really good luck with your professional development. I hope you find it a really valuable experience. And if you do have any questions, please do contact us at the Safari Park. We are always happy to help. And thank you very much for joining my talk today.